Hey, I got a couple questions for y'all. The first one, who is your Lord? What is your religion? Who is your prophet? Now, I know this sounds crazy, but if you're one of those people that have been trying to get information and you come across this, or even this. All right, take a listen.
Assalamu alaikum. I am Sister Layla Nashiba, the Managing Director and founder of Sunnahfollowers Online Islamic University. As you know, we have classes every day beginning at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And we cover everything from Aqidah, which is your belief system, to Seerah, which are the stories of the Prophet, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the story of the companions. Please join us every day beginning at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And we are broadcasting and streaming live on Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, DLive, Trovo, and Twitch. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
He was the first successor after the death of the Prophet. He was the first man to accept Islam. He was Abu Bakr as-Siddiq. Join Sunnah followers every Wednesday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time as Ustad Muqtar Shaheed shares his life story.
She was a slave, born from Egypt and given to the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, along with her sister by the governor of Alexandria. She would later give birth to the Prophet's son, who he named Ibrahim. Her name is Mariya al-Qibtiyya. Join host Layla Nashiba on the hit series Heroines of Islam every Monday and Wednesday 9 p.m. Eastern right here on Sunnah Followers.
Okay, alhamdulillah. Ina alhamdulillah, wa salat, wa salam ala wa rasulullah. Welcome to our series entitled The Heroines of Islam. the heroines of Islam. And mashallah, this is a series in which we will delve into the stories of the female companions. You know, a lot of the sisters come to me and say, Sister Layla, we need to hear or learn more about the women in Islam. And this is important, especially being that we are living in an era of in which Islam has become corrupted. We have a lot of women who call themselves Muslims, and they feel this need to propagate feminism. There's no need for feminism in Islam. Why? Because Islam is a way of life that liberated women. Islam gave women rights that they never had before. Islam elevated women and made them equal to men spiritually. So for those women today who call themselves Muslims and advocate for femininity, these are women that are not educated about their way of life, you know, and unfortunately there's a lot of Muslims out there who are not educated as to their way of life. And so that's why I'm doing this series. And also the way I am teaching is not like other daya. I am not only teaching you about these female companions, but since we're dealing with the wives of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, I'm trying to give you insight as to how to take on their characteristics so that you can have successful marriages like they had too, because the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is the life coach for the Muslim, and his companions, male and female, they are our role models. So when speaking about the best of the best, we have to start with the wives of the Prophet. Allah tells us in the Quran, the best of this nation are those who were with the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And who could be the best except those whom lived with him, who he loved, who he cared for. So this is why I began with the story of the wives of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And today will mark the conclusion of the wives of the Prophet. And after this, I'll go into the other female heroines of Islam. We're going to speak about other female heroines. But tonight, we're going to answer the question that many Muslims ask about the last woman who is named with the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and her name was Mariya the Copt. Mariya the Copt. Was she a wife of the Prophet? The answer is no. Do you guys hear me? It's clear. She was not a wife of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And I'm going to give you the dalil. I'm going to give you the authentic evidence to prove it. So if she wasn't a wife, then what was she? Well, she was what is known as a right hand possession. What is a right hand possession? A right hand possession, these are the slaves. The slaves. She technically was a jariya. Okay, she wasn't even really a right hand possession. Okay, the right hand possession, these are the women back in the 6th, 7th, 8th century before Islam. Whenever anybody that lived in the world back then, the Romans, the Vikings, the Persians, whatever, whenever a battle was fought, the women and children were brought out to the battlefield too, because whoever was the victor took possession not only of the loser's property, but also their women and children too. Their women and children became their slaves. Their slaves. The men would divide the women up amongst themselves, and the children too. Sometimes women were separated from their children. In fact, many times. Okay. So we talked about the story of Safiya, radiallahu anha. Safiya was a true example of a right-hand possession. When the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and the companions, when they fought against the Jews, Safiya was a right-hand possession, being that she was from a noble family. She was the daughter of the chief. And the Prophet was the leader of the Muslims. She and her sister were brought to him. For him, because the leader of the victor had first choice to the royal family. Well, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam took Safiya as his wife. She was so, but originally she was a right-hand possession. But the Prophet freed her, and he ended up marrying her when he recognized that she was the daughter of Aaron, a granddaughter of Aaron, Prophet Aaron alayhi salam, and the niece of Moses. And like he said, the daughter of a prophet is nobody's property. You are my wife. He married Safiya. But now Mariya, the story of Mariya is different. She wasn't really considered a right-hand possession. So let's put the PowerPoint up on the screen and we can begin the story of Mariya the Copt. Mariya the Copt. Okay? And I'm saying her name in English. I'm not going to use no Arabic because you guys don't speak Arabic. You don't understand those words. I'm speaking Anglo because I want y'all to understand this. Okay? So let's put the PowerPoint up here on the screen. All right. Inshallah, you guys will be able to see my screen. Okay. Wait a minute. Oh. Okay, hold on. Wait a minute. Let me fix it up. It's not. By the way, guys, I'm streaming on another platform too. You guys can check it out. We're streaming live, and that's why I'm having this problem because I got that open too. We are also streaming simultaneously on the new program Mixcloud, mixcloud.com. So if you guys want to join mixcloud.com, or if you have an account on mixcloud.com, feel free to watch us on that platform too. And so since I'm streaming on it, let me set this up because it's right in my PowerPoint thing. I have to do the PowerPoint a different way. Okay. Hold on. Almost got it. Whenever you add something new to your computer, you have to change everything. And I mean everything here. Yeah, almost done. Hold on. And one of the moderators, if you guys would be nice enough to join mix.com, Mixcloud is mixcloud.com, and let me know if y'all see me streaming on there. You should, but just, to make sure that you guys actually can see me if I got it set up right.
Yes, you're streaming on there.
Oh, you're on there? Is it clear?
Yeah, I can see you.
It's clear?
Yeah.
Okay, good. You like it? Do you like this?
It kind of looks like the YouTube as well.
It does.
But I don't know about the chat. Like, we can't chat on there. I don't know if you're supposed to create an account or something.
I might have to. Yeah, you might have. Either I didn't set it up, but it looks like YouTube, doesn't it? That's why I said too. I kind of like it. I got my phone logged in. Okay, let's get started. I think we can start it. Okay. All right. Let's try the PowerPoint again. Okay, can everybody see this? Okay. Take it backwards too. Let me take it backwards. My allergies. Okay, so today we're going to do part 1 of the story of Mariya the Copt. The Mariya the Copt. And they refer to her as being a Copt for a reason. There's a reason as to why she's called the Copt. The Copt. And we're going to talk about why she's called the Copt in this session. Okay? Let's talk about how the prophet came upon her. Well, Mariya, radiallahu anha, she was born in Upper Egypt in the village of Hifin on the eastern bank of the Nile River. And this is very important for those of us who are Egyptian. We know what this means. Upper Egypt and Lower Egypt are 2 separate entities. Okay? And if you go to Upper Egypt and you look at the people from Lower Egypt, there's a little difference about them. You will notice a difference about them. The people that are born and raised in Upper Egypt, the looks are kind of different. There's a reason for this. Now, the first part of Maria's life was spent in the village, her village of Hifin, with her sister Serene. Her father was an Egyptian man, and her mother was an Orthodox Christian. Very important here, this point. Very important here. Let's talk about it. Now I'm going to give you guys some history of the Copts. Why is she called not Mariya the Egyptian? Coptia does not mean Egyptian. Coptia means Copt. What's the difference? Well, any Egyptian will tell you the Copts. Copt has 2 meanings for them. Nowadays, any Egyptian that refers to himself or herself as being a Copt, they're telling you that they're Christian. I tell you guys all the time that not all Arabs are Muslim. 30%, I repeat, 30%, I repeat again. Statistics show that 30% of the Arabs are Christian. There's a lot of Christians in Egypt. There's a lot of Christian Arabs in Lebanon. There's a lot of Christian Arabs. Well, in Egypt, if a person tells you they're a Copt, they're basically nowadays telling you that they're Christian. But it goes deeper than that. It goes deeper than that. It goes deeper than that. This is where history comes in. DNA, all of that. Let's talk about who were the Copts. The Copts weren't just Christians. When the Egyptians tell you that they're Copt, for some, they're saying they're Christian, but there's a lot of Muslim Egyptians who will tell you they're Coptic too. What does that mean? Coptic Egyptians. These are the Egyptians whose DNA go all the way back to the ancient pharaohs. The Copts is not a religion per se. Copts is a race of people, A race of people. Y'all get it? A race of people. The ancient Egyptians were Copts. That's their race. Copts. Pharaoh, may Allah, who Allah has cursed, was a Copt. Those pyramids were built by Copts. It's a race. Do you guys get that? It's a race. Now, we can do a whole class on this. You know, I'm into that stuff. DNA, linealogy, it's an Arabic trait. The Copts, to be honest, the Copts are Arabs. They're from the original Arabs, okay? So this is why Egyptians are still Arabs. They're Arabs. They're original in blood. They're not the Arabs who are Arabs because of Ismail marrying an Arab woman. You got two different types of Arabs. We talked about this before. The Arabs who are the descendants of Prophet Ismail, who was not Arab, but he married an Arab wife. Okay? Then you have the other Arabs. The Arabs who come from the one of those tribes of Saba. Those three tribes of Saba. I talked about that. Allah speaks about that in the Quran too. The three tribes of Saba. And then you have the perishing Arabs. Who were the perishing Arabs? The perishing Arabs were the people of Thamud and stuff. Allah destroyed them, wiped them off this earth. But the original Arabs came from three tribes of Saba. My tribe is Saba Ur. And if you guys are a true Arab, you can trace it. When you do your DNA, your lineage, you're going to trace back to one of those tribes. I'm Saba Ur. Okay? Pfizer is another tribe of Saba Ur. And these tribes originate from out of Yemen. The Arabs race originates from out of Yemen. Okay. The Copts. The Copts. These were from the tribe of Saba. Many from Ur, or from the other two tribes that migrated, because back then, all of that was together. That part of Saudi Arabia that is now a peninsula used to be attached to Africa. All of that was one continent. Well, the tribes of Saba, one of the tribes of Saba, Ur, and there were others, they migrated from Yemen to Egypt. Yemen was to Egypt. Those were the original Arabs. They were the Copts. Y'all get it? The Copts. Original Arabs. The Copts. Now, they look a little different from the Arabs from the south, because under the caliphate of Uthman, may Allah be pleased with him, when Uthman radiallahu anhu was the caliphate of the Muslim world, he was the one that took Islam from out of Arabia across the ocean to Egypt, North Africa. Amir ibn al-As was the governor of Egypt. Okay, but before Uthman took Islam there, the northern part of Africa had been conquered by many different people. We all know what happened with Pharaoh and them. Allah wiped them Kafirs out, left their monuments behind. You know, Then you had other people take over, the Romans, y'all know about Cleopatra. She was Mesopotamia and she took over Alexandria and all of that crazy stuff. So those people, the Copts were the original Egyptians. They have been conquered by different peoples and they're light in color. How can you tell the difference? If you guys go to Upper Egypt, Alexandria, the Arabs look a little different there. The ones who originate from there. They're lighter in color. They have distinctive eyes. It's something about their eyes. They have thick, dark eyebrows. They have eyes that kind of look Asian. Those are the Copts. Also, their hair is a little different. Their hair is not as kinky as the Southern Arabs are. Some of them are, but not that many. Their hair is curly, but it's not the kinky curl. It's that body-like, wavy curl. So they look a little bit different if you look closely. Their noses are keener. Their lips, not as profound. So they look a little different because they were the original Copts, the original Egyptians. Plus, look what happened when the Vikings came later too. Vikings, Romans, blah, blah, blah. So they're lighter and they're little, you look closely, you can see the difference. Okay? That's why some Egyptians make a difference. Y'all don't know this. Some Egyptians make a distinction. Are you from Cairo or Alexandria? Are you from Upper Egypt or Lower Egypt? This is a problem that we have, this coloring. There's racism amongst us. Oh, she's light, she's dark. Y'all know that. Well, I'm from Upper Egypt. I'm lighter. Different story. So Mariya, radiyallahu anha, she was a Copt. She came from the original Egyptians. She was from Upper Egypt. Her mother was a Catholic. Her mother had taken on the religion of Catholicism, which had been brought over through the Romans and all that conquering. Okay? Also, not only was Mariya a Copt, who else was a Copt? Hajar. Y'all remember the story of Prophet Abraham and the mother of Ismail, Hajar. She's not called Hajar the Egyptian either. She's called a Copt. And they use that term on purpose. Copt signifies from the original ancient Egyptians. Y'all get what I'm saying now? So if you come upon an Egyptian that's Muslim and tells you he or she is Coptic, I'm from the original ones. And you usually can tell by this. Eyebrows, eyes. I'm one of those Egyptians that's Coptic too. That's how I know about this. Did my DNA. That Viking blood got Layla. But this will never go away. This is how, when I come upon other Egyptians, when other Egyptians from Egypt meet me, what's the first thing they say? Y'all heard it when Dr. Saeed and them came on my website. First thing they say is original. Can't hide this. Plus the skin color. All right? Coptic. Remember that. So, let's put the PowerPoint back up. Mariya, radiyallahu anha, was born in Upper Egypt in the village of Hifin on the eastern bank of the Nile River. The first part of her life was spent in this village with her sister Serene. Her father was an Egyptian and her mother was an Orthodox Christian. So you will hear the Christian Egyptians call themselves Copts, but Copts is also a race now. It's a race. She was both. She was Christian, and she was the race of Coptic. When she was young, her and her sister were brought to the palace of the Muqawqis of Egypt. The Muqawqis was like a governor, the ruler of Egypt. And when she and her sister were brought to his palace, they lived the rest of their life there. And while her and her sister grew up in the palace, the word got out that a prophet had emerged from the Arabian Peninsula. And when the prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam entered into that peace agreement, the Hudaybiyah Treaty, he sent letters to all the important rulers in the world inviting them to Islam. And he sent such a letter to Jurayj ibn Mina and to the Byzantine or the Roman governor of Alexandria. Because at that point, like I told you guys, it's history. You know, Egypt was being run by the Romans at that time. They had been through the Vikings. They had been through so many different people. Okay. But the Romans were in control of Egypt at this time. Okay. So the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam had an envoy send a letter, you know, inviting the ruler, you know, of Egypt. Because Egypt was one of the superpowers too. The two main superpowers was the Roman Empire and the Persian Empire. Well, the Romans had control of Egypt. So the prophet sent a letter through a letter inviting them to Islam. And the person that carried the letter that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam sent was a companion named Hatib ibn Abu Belta. He was the one who presented the letter of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam to the ruler. And when the ruler of Egypt opened the letter, this is what the letter said. From the servant and prophet of Allah, Muhammad, to the great Muqawqis of the Coptic nation. Now, in this term, Coptic was meant Christian here, because at this point, the Romans had conquered Egypt, and Egypt was a Christian country now. Remember, not only was Mariya Christian, but she was from the ancient original Egyptians. Okay? So this letter said, to the ruler of the Coptic nation, may greetings be upon those who find guidance and the correct way. I invite you to Islam. Come to Islam and find peace, and may Allah reward you doubled. If you do not accept my invitation, but avoid it, then all the sins of the Coptic people will be on your head. And then he said, Allah says, O people of the book, come to common terms as between us and you, that we worship none but Allah, and that we associate no partners with him, that we erect not from among ourselves lords and patrons other than Allah. Then if they turn back, say, bear witness that we at least are Muslims. So that's the letter that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam sent to the ruler of Egypt. And after Hatib had read the letter, the Muqawqis, who was the ruler, he said, you have been sent by someone who is very knowledgeable, and you are a person of knowledge. And he began to ask Hatib to tell him about the Prophet Muhammad. And after a few questions, and one of them was, if he truly is a prophet, then why does he not destroy his enemies with a curse? Kind of sounds like something that Pharaoh would say. This is what the Muqawqis said. He said, this man seems to be intelligent. You know, I'm a Christian. But if this man is really a prophet, why don't he just send a curse upon his enemies? This is how Hatib answered him. He said, wasn't Jesus a prophet? Jesus was a prophet, but he suffered great torment and strife because his own people did not acknowledge him. Why didn't Jesus destroy his people with a curse? He said, our invitation to the Quran is just like the invitation that Jesus sent to the Jews. The Muqawqis couldn't deny that. So what the Muqawqis did was he said, I knew that another prophet was going to come because the Bible told us that. He said, but I thought the new prophet would come from Syria. He said, the Copts, the Christian people, they will not listen to me. They will not listen to me. They will not accept another prophet. And so then what the Muqawqis did was he took the letter that the prophet sent him and put it in a box, and he gave it to a slave woman. And then the Muqawqis treated Hatib and those who came with him with respect. But he told him, I cannot accept Islam, even though I may want to, even though I may agree that he is the prophet of Allah. I can't do it because if I did it, my people will overthrow me because this is a Christian nation. They are not going to leave that belief. So he basically was letting them know, I believe he probably is a prophet, but I care more about my power. And this is what happens to men. And this is why Allah has sent war upon us today as a nation. How many of our scholars, how many of our learned men, how many of our learned women have sold Islam, have sold the Quran, have sold the truth for the miserable price of fame? That's why Allah sent war to us today. Well, this Muqawqis did the same thing, even though he knew that the Prophet Muhammad was a prophet. He chose to decline the invitation because he wanted to hold on to his fame, his pomp and circumstance. But so as not to end up angering the Prophet Muhammad, he sent his envoy back with gifts. In other words, he played two sides of the fence. He didn't want repercussion from the Muslims. So I'm going to send you back to your prophet with a lot of presents. And amongst the gifts that he sent back were Mariya. And he sent this letter back too. It said, I have read your letter and I understand what you are inviting me to. I knew that another prophet would come, but I thought he would come from Syria. I have honored your envoy, and I send as a present to you 2 slave girls who are highly respected amongst the Egyptian people. Why? Because they were Copts. Why was Mariya and her sister respected? Because they weren't Copts by religion. They were original Copts. They were from the ancient Egyptians. This is important, this letter. Y'all understand? To have your roots come from the ancient Egyptians before Islam, this was something great because these are people who had bragging rights to say, the blood of Pharaoh runs through me, astaghfirullah. And believe it or not, guys, let me just keep it real. There are some Egyptians today. Can you believe? This was before Islam. They bragged and boasted because they had the blood of the ancient pharaohs in them. Can y'all believe this is 2023 and we still have Egyptians that are Muslim? You want to brag about being Coptic? Astaghfirullah, Allah cursed them. There ain't nothing to brag about. But we got Muslim Egyptians today. I see it all the time when I'm on them other platforms. You know, they boast and brag, I'm Copt. I'm Copt. I'm a descendant of the pharaohs. Yeah, well, that's nothing to brag about. Pharaoh was named by Allah as being fuel for the hellfire. You boast and brag about your forefathers being of the hellfire. You see how nationalistic we become. This nationalism, this tribalism, this racism. The Prophet Muhammad tried to do away with that. But life is a circle. It comes back around. Here we got Muslims thinking it's something to boast about. Okay, look at Layla. I'm Coptic too, but I don't boast about that. You know, I don't boast about nothing except being a Muslim. A Muslim. Allah left the pyramids behind as a reminder as to what happens to people of arrogance. If anything, if you got that ancient Egyptian blood in you, it should be a reminder as to what happens when you disobey Allah. It's nothing to brag and boast about. Y'all understand that? And that's to my Egyptian sisters who are listening to me. I'm keeping it real. Your Coptic sister keeping it real. Okay? All right. So, the Muqawqis gave the letter to Hatib and told him that the Egyptians were very devoted to their religion, which was Christianity at the time. And he presented the envoy with gifts and food and recommended that he keep what happened in the palace secret. That shows how the Muqawqis was. He didn't want none of the Egyptians to find out that he was sending him back with gifts, especially Mariya and her sister, because Mariya and her sister were from the ancient Egyptians. Okay? So they were respected. And also, guys, there's another hadith out there. There's another hadith from that says that not only did he give him Mariya and her sister to take to the prophet, but also 2 more slaves. He gave them 4 slave girls. There were 4 slave girls who were all respected. They were all Coptic. They were all from the original ancient Egyptians. And this was a great honor. So according to another hadith, it was 4 of them. It was Mariya, her sister, and 2 more. And also with them was another slave who was a man. He was named Mabur. Mabur was a eunuch. Let me explain what a eunuch, because you're going to hear about him. There's hadiths about him. Mabur was a eunuch. Back in those days, when the Egyptians or the Vikings or the Romans had male slaves for the women of nobility, they would castrate them. These were men who were castrated, so they could not be tempted to defile any of the women. So this man, Mabur, he was an Egyptian slave who was a eunuch. He had been castrated. And since Mariya and her sister were from the ancient Egyptians, they grew up in the palace like noble women, even though they were slaves. But that's how they valued the ancient blood being in a person. And Mabur was the one that took care of them. Okay, so since he was a eunuch to them, he was to be their eunuch for life. So when the Muqawqis sent Mariya and her sister as and those other two Coptic women as slaves, he sent Mabur too, because he was the one that cared for them. And also the Muqawqis sent 1,000 gold coins. He also sent an Egyptian robe, and also a horse, a saddle, and honey, which was very, very popular back then. You guys know the story of Hafsa and Zainab and the honey. And that honey came from Egypt and places like that. And also he sent a variety of incense. Okay, so all that was sent back to the prophet. So as Mariya radiallahu anha and her sister were leaving their homeland, they were very unhappy. They cried. They took one last look at the Nile River, the land of their childhood. And Hatib, being a good man, he wanted them to not cry, and he wanted them to forget their sorrow. So he began to describe the Prophet Muhammad to them, to try to make them feel better. He let these two sisters know, look, you're going back as slaves, but you're not going to be mistreated. Back in those days, if a woman was given as a slave, she was a bedmate. She was nothing but a sex toy, okay? And sometimes they would prostitute their slaves. So these two women who were Copts were treated with such respect from their country because they had the ancient blood in them. They were afraid. They didn't know who they were going to. Oh my God, we're going to be prostituted. We're going to be raped. We're going to be pimped. We're going to be whatever. So Hatib got busy letting them know that's not going to happen. Muhammad is a messenger of Allah. Allah sent down laws where we have to treat the slave women with respect. This is why I tell you, there's no need for feminism in Islam. He let Mariya and her sister and the other slave girls know, you women will not be defiled. You women will not be prostituted. You women will not be mistreated. We respect our slaves. Anyone that takes you as an owner, you will be like a wife to them. You'll be living with in respect. Your children, if you have any by them, will be cared for. So he tried to tell them about the prophet and about the religion, so they wouldn't be so upset, and afraid. And so the two young girls, because Mariya was young, her and her sister were very young. They sat and listened to his description of the religion. And guess what happened? Their hearts began to turn towards Islam. And this puts aside the second rumor. The first rumor we're going to get to. The second rumor and lie about Mariya. A lot of Muslims today say that Mariya was a Christian, that the prophet married a Christian. First of all, he never married Mariya. She was never his wife. She was his jariya, a slave. And she was not, I repeat, when she met upon the prophet, she was not a Christian. Because through Allah and what Hatib told her and her sister and the other two young girls, their hearts began to turn towards Islam. And on their way to Medina, all four of those women became Muslim. So this is a lie that Muslims say. And all of these hadiths that I'm reading to you can be found in Bukhari and Muslim. Everything that I am teaching you today can be verified in Sahih Bukhari and Sahih Muslim. No question. So the prophet's slave woman was not a Christian. Maria was not a Christian. When she's called Maria the Copt, it doesn't mean Maria the Christian. It means Maria from the original ancient Egyptians. The two meanings of Copt, either Christian or I am from the original. I am an original Egyptian. That's why she's called Coptia. Not because she was a Christian. It's because she was from the original Egyptians. Hello. And we're going to get into that a little bit more. Okay. So these women, all four of them, had basically converted to Islam. And that's a long journey. It's a long journey from Egypt to Medina, especially when you didn't have airplanes. But even though these four young women converted to Islam, the eunuch, Mabir, he didn't convert yet. He became Muslim later. He didn't convert to Islam until after he met the Prophet. And there's many hadiths in Bukhari and Muslim that speak about Mabir's conversion. Okay, but before the women even arrived in Medina, all four of the women were Muslim. They all declared La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah. So the Prophet did not have a Christian slave woman or Christian wife. All his wives were Muslim. Maria was never his wife, but she was his Muslim Jariya, slave girl. Okay? Jariya. Okay, after a long journey, the caravan arrived in Medina. And when did Maria and them arrive? The 7th year after the Hijrah. The Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam came out to meet them. And he was given the letter and the gifts from the Muqawqis. And when the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam saw Maria, he was happy with her. And so he took her as his slave. And he gave her sister Sirin to Hassan ibn Thabit. And you guys know who he was. He was a famous companion, Hassan ibn Thabit. So Hassan ibn Thabit got her sister. Now let's talk about why the Prophet chose Maria. A reason for everything he did. When he married Sophia, why did he marry Sophia? Can you guys remember? When Sophia was brought to him through the battlefield and presented before him as a right-hand possession, a captive of war, what happened? The angel Jibreel told him she is the granddaughter of Aaron, the niece of Moses. And that's when the prophet looked at Sophia and said, you are the daughter of a prophet. A daughter of a prophet would never be anybody's slave. He said, I'm making you my wife. Well, why did he choose Maria? He knew she was from the ancients. She was from the original Egyptians. So her and her sister were from the original Egyptians, as were the other two slave women. So he decided, I'm going to take one of them for me, and I'm going to distribute the other ones to other companions who had did great things, because this is an honor. It's an honor. Just like it was an honor to have the daughter of a prophet as a wife, it was an honor to have one of the ancients as a slave. To show what? Can y'all see what that symbolizes? The victory of Allah. The ancient pharaohs, they thought themselves to be God. My God is not your God, Moses. Y'all see that? Not worthy of a wife. You see the logic, the hikmah of Allah, the hikmah of Allah. If I marry her, maybe the people will think that after all, maybe Pharaoh was a god. Hello, my Egyptian sisters. I want y'all to listen to me, and you all speak good English. You want to brag about the blood of Pharaoh. Why is it that our prophet didn't marry Mariya? To show Allah always prevails. Allah is Akbar. Not those pyramids. Not those pharaohs. Sophia, it's not befitting. It's not befitting, my sisters. It's not befitting for the daughter of a prophet to be a slave. But a descendant of the pharaohs, I'll take you as my Jariya. Does that make sense? Ifti, do you get that? Ifti, do you get it?
Yes, yes. Subhanallah. Yeah.
Makes sense.
Very deep.
Yeah, that's
It
deep.
all makes sense.
Yes. So he didn't marry Mariya. And that's probably why. To show that Allah will always prevail. Okay, she's a descendant of the originals. Okay. So, and he divided the rest of the women up. They were all, and by the way, they all went to good companions. And all the companions treated these women with respect, but they didn't marry them. These women remained their slaves, their Jariya, not their wives. Okay? So the prophet was happy with Mariya. And he took her as his, but he knew he was going to have a problem. Because Mariya was beautiful. The ancients, those eyes, Egyptian eyes, those eyebrows, that skin color, something about them, Arabic, but with something else too. Arabic, like Aisha, Arabic, like Hafsa. But look at those eyes. Look at those eyes. Y'all get it? Y'all get it? Also, the color of her skin. The color of her skin. Not so Arabic. For those of you who don't know, Arabs come in colors just like African Americans. Why do y'all think a lot of Arabic men like to come to America and marry African American women? Because they look like they're women. Arabs come in all different colors, from jet black to pale white. Aisha, radiallahu anha, she was very pale. Y'all remember? Aisha was very pale in color. Even our Prophet Muhammad was white in color. Okay, but there were other Arabs who were darker in color. Some black as a boot. They come in different colors. Okay, but something about Mariya. Y'all know that? So the prophet decided to keep her away from his other wives. The Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam knew his women. A good man knows his women. He knew that if Aisha and Hafsa and all the other wives saw her, they'd have a fit, because they were already tripping over Sophia. Remember, the prophet had just married Sophia, the Jewish woman. They were still tripping over the fact that he married a Jew. And also he married Maymuna. He had just married Maymuna, who was a warrior ninja. Don't mess with her. So he knew if they saw Mariya, so he hid her. Let's talk about that. By the way, this is a picture of a Copt. Y'all see this picture I used? I tried to find a modern day picture of a Coptic Egyptian woman. This woman in this picture here is supposed to be a Copt. She's supposed to be from the original Pharaoh, but her eyebrows are arched. They usually have thick, dark eyebrows. But this woman, you see her hair is curly, wavy. Curly, wavy. This is supposed to be a Coptic woman of Egypt today. All right. Look at her features. Look at those eyes. Look at the eyebrows, the keen nose, the lips. Curly, wavy hair. So after they settled in Medina, the slave Mabur, he would often come in and out of Maria's house. The prophet had put her in a house away from his other wives. None of his wives had seen her. He didn't want them to see her. So he put her in a house away from them with someone else. And her slave eunuch, Mabur, would go and take care of her. The hypocrites, not understanding that Mabur was a eunuch, they began to gossip. They began to say, oh, the prophet brought a slave girl from Egypt. And this slave girl's having relations with this her slave man. But Allah put those rumors to rest, by letting it be known that the prophet let it be known that Mabur was a eunuch. Okay, but the people got a glimpse of Maria. With all the rumors, they got to see how she looked. So the news got around that she was young, that she was beautiful, and that she didn't look like the typical Egyptians did. And she was staying in the house of Harith ibn Numair, which was close to the mosque. What happened? Aisha. Now let's talk about that. Aisha tells us in her own words, you can find these hadiths in Bukhari and Muslim. She said when she got word that the envoy had came back from Egypt with gifts for the prophet, and the prophet had received a slave, she said she didn't care. It didn't bother her because she figured, well, she's from Egypt. She's dark. Nobody for me to worry about. She was thinking that she was a typical Egyptian, dark in color, maybe not pretty in appearance. It didn't bother her. And that's how the prophet wanted her to think. He wanted her to believe that she's just an Egyptian, Cairo kind, dark, nothing good to look at. That's what she was thinking. But when she started hearing rumors that this woman, she wasn't like your typical Egyptian. She was different. She looked different. Aisha tells her that that's when her curiosity got the better of us. And this is what she said. She said, when I saw Maria, I was never more jealous of any other woman. And here's the dalil. She was extremely beautiful. She had white skin. White skin. White skin. And she had long, wavy, curly hair. She said she was extremely beautiful. So there it is. This hadith, Muslim and Bukhari. Okay? So that's when Aisha went berserk. Oh, wait a minute. She got white skin. She's like me because Aisha was pale. She was white. Oh my God. Look at her hair. Long, wavy, curly. Oh, she's beautiful. That's why the prophet hid Maria. because he knew the reaction that Aisha and Hafsa, the two troublemakers, would give him. And that's where the fitna came with Hafsa. That's what caused the prophet to divorce Hafsa. But he took her back. Because when they saw Mariya, they couldn't. She was young too. Young like Aisha. I think she was the same age as Aisha, maybe. She might have been like 15 or something like Aisha. Okay? Young like her and beautiful. Let's continue. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam knew his wives and knew how they would react to her. And that's why he put her in one of the upper regions of Medina called Aliyah. And this is a picture of that. This is Aliyah. These are the ruins of it. This is the ruins of Aliyah, this town in Egypt. This was a house in which she was placed, and it's now known as Ibrahim's Mashraba, the high villa, because as you guys know, Mariya became the mother. Can you imagine the anger of Aisha at that? She also was the one that got pregnant. She was the mother of the prophet's son, Abraham. But this is where he kept her. He tried to keep her here to hide her away from Aisha. He did not want them to see her because he wanted them to think that she was what they thought she would look like. But here she was beautiful, white in color, long, beautiful, wavy, curly hair, you know, the descendants of the ancient Egyptians, young, petite, beautiful. By the way, this is another picture of a Copt. This is the same woman. This is the same woman. This is a model's picture. Y'all see this lady? She's a Copt. This is another picture of her. Y'all see she put her eyes on with the kohol. The Egyptians were always known for their kohol. See how she looks? White in color, but she's got her eyebrows arched. But this is that same lady. This is a Copt. They look different than those other Egyptians. You see the difference is Ifti?
Yes, I do.
Yeah, the difference. That's why I had to look for these pictures. Yeah.
Yeah. Very beautiful.
Yes. Mariya, she was with the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam for a year, and she was very happy with him because he treated her so well. He treated her just like a wife. Now let's talk about that for a minute. Allah allows a man to have 4 wives in Islam, and he can have as many right-hand possession or slaves as he wants. What's the difference between a wife and a slave? The only difference is that the man does not have to spend equal time with his slave girl. Okay? That's the only difference. But he has to provide for her. He has to maintain her. He has to take care of her, just like a wife. So Mariya was happy. You know, the prophet took care of her. It was a total opposite of what she thought. Back in those days, slave women were prostituted. Back in those days, slave women were raped. They were bed wenches. But Islam changed that. Islam gave slave women rights. So she loved the Prophet Muhammad, and he loved her. He actually loved her, not just because she was beautiful, but because she was his Hajar. Mariya the Copt. She was his Hajar the Copt. Everybody knows who was the Prophet Muhammad's favorite relative. Abraham. The Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam was a descendant of Prophet Ibrahim. What did he say when he went on his night journey? Who did he look like? He said, I look most like Abraham. I look just like him. The prophet admired Abraham because Abraham was the one that Allah made his friend. If there was any human being who the Prophet Muhammad wanted to live up to, it was Prophet Ibrahim alayhi salam. So he loved Maria because he told her, you are my Hajar. You are to me what Hajar was to my father Ibrahim. You're beautiful like Hajar was. You're sweet and kind like Hajar was. He loved his Maria, and that made Aisha and Hafsa and the other wives too. Even Salama didn't get involved in the drama, but even she raised her eyebrows. She was like, he really likes that slave girl. Salama with her knife. He really likes that slave girl. Maymuna. Yeah. She raised all their eyebrows up, because he loved her. He spent a lot of time with her. All right. So Maria, they say, was a good woman. She had been trained by her being raised as a slave. She knew how to satisfy a man because she grew up in the palace of the Muqawqis. Her and her sister were taught to service a man. So her only desire was to win his love and approval. She carried the enchantment of the Nile and the fragrance with which the Nile was surrounded. And she had the intelligence of her ancestors. Remember, she was from the original Egyptians, the pharaohs, extremely intelligent. Whenever the prophet would come to her, he would talk to her. And he would try to make her feel good because she missed her homeland. Egypt was always a beautiful place, guys. Egypt, the land of the Nile. She was homesick. So he would come to her and try to make her feel welcome. To go from Egypt to a land of sand, there's nothing beautiful about Arabia, guys, compared to Egypt. Egypt, and it's beautiful now, is beautiful. This barren place. So she was homesick. So he would go and visit her, and try to take away that, and she would service him. They fell in love. Like I said, she was his Hajar. Here's the same woman. This is a Copt. Y'all see how pale she is, how white her skin is. These are the Copts. These are the original Egyptians. Maria, she resembled Hajar in her personality and in her fate. Because they both were Copts, they both came from Egypt, they were both slaves given to a prophet. And Maria loved to hear her story. The Prophet Muhammad used to meet with her and he would tell her, she would say, tell me again, tell me about Hajar, tell me about Hajar, because Hajar's like me, because she missed her homeland. Remember, she was young like Aisha. She was Aisha's age, 16. Tell me about Hajar. So he would always tell her the story of Abraham and Ismail and Hajar and Sarah. And she could relate to that because his wives were jealous of her. Just like Sarah was jealous of Hajar. So she could relate to that. She would say, oh, Muhammad, your wives, they hate me. He said, don't worry. Don't worry, you are my Hajar. He used to tell her, you are my Hajar. Okay? And guess what happened, guys? She eventually became his Hajar. Because one day, at this time, the prophet was 60 years old. She was around the same age as Aisha, radiallahu anha. One day, after 2 years of them being together, Maria began to get sick. She didn't know what was wrong with her. So she shared it with her sister. And her sister told her, Maria, you are pregnant. And that's where I'm going to stop. Remember, her favorite story was the story of Hajar, her love for the prophet. And he told her, you are my Hajar. Imagine, after being together 2 years, she finds out she's pregnant. I'm going to stop right here for today because it got really stanky after this. Here's this beautiful woman who can boast and brag, but she didn't. She could boast and brag, but she didn't because she knew those people were cursed. This is to my Egyptian sisters listening to me. She came from the ancient pharaohs. She was the same age as Aisha, radiallahu anha. And she got pregnant with the child of a prophet, just like Hajar. Aisha didn't get pregnant. She did. So when I meet for this class again next week, we're going to talk about what happened. And you guys need to be here because I'm telling you, it was live. And in Aisha's own words, Aisha says she regretted the things she said. Remember, Aisha had a problem with her tongue. Here we got Aisha calling Sophia a filthy dog because she was a Jew. Then she didn't bother Maymuna because Maymuna would whoop her behind, so she stayed away from her. But here we got this slave girl. And the slave girl ends up pregnant with my man's baby when I was the virgin. Oh, we're going to see what happened. So I'm going to stop right here. Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdika ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. I hope you guys understand what a Copt is. I wanted to really make sure that you guys understand what a Copt is. Okay? It's not just a religion. Okay. Any questions or comments?
Yes, I just Jazakallah khair, Leila. Yeah, I was always was told as Coptic, when you mentioned Coptic, it was always towards a religion, and not just a religion. It was anytime we saw a Coptic Christian, it was always perceived that those were the worst ones that hated Islam. Like they're the most strict and they hate Islam.
They do. Because they are Arabs who chose Christianity. And they think that Islam is the reason why the Arabs are not united. Like I said, but that's today's stuff. Mm-hmm. But back in those days, it wasn't that. Because they were Arabs always. But the difference was they were from that tribe of Ur and that other tribe that migrated to Egypt. And they were that's where the pharaohs and them came from. They were the pharaohs and them. Everything is from Yemen. Yemen is that cradle. If there were to be a cradle of civilization, it would be Yemen. The Arabs originate from Yemen. The Arabs originate from Yemen. And you had 3 tribes. Allah talks about. I did the story of Saba. It's in the Quran. Those 3 tribes went to different parts. Allah says one of them went to that North Africa. The other one went to Arabia. The other tribe went to where Syria is. Those are the 3 tribes. Those are the 3. That's where the Arabs originate from. Then you got the other Arabs that are the descendants of Prophet Ismail. Okay, that's the Palestinians. The Palestinians are the descendants of Prophet Ismail. Islam. And so a lot of y'all got roots that go to the other ones too. You can be y'all. A lot of the Palestinians have both because they all mixed up now. Okay. But that's what separated the Palestinians. They were the descendants of Ismail and Abraham. Okay, but the Pharaoh and them from that tribe of Saba Ur. Yeah, so Copts is not just a religion, it's a race. And they look different.
Yeah.
And they're very arrogant, from what I understand. Just from me joining these other chat rooms, and I'm around these Egyptians, they're very arrogant. They boast and brag about that crap. I had to check one because they had nerve to think they came from Cleopatra. I said, you ain't got Cleopatra wasn't even Egyptian. She was Roman. They're into that crap, man. It's sad. And we wonder why Allah got war. Yeah, Egyptians.
Will you be touching on why the prophet didn't marry, or did he marry any of his slave women? Or
no, that's what I'm saying. No, he didn't marry her. No.
Okay.
She was his, no, he didn't marry her. No. And we're going to talk about
marry any?
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask too.
We all his wives. Y'all see where his wives came from? He only had them 11 wives. They were all his cousins, basically, except for Sophia. The prophet, we went over this. Who was his first wife? Khadijah. She was from the Quraysh. Second wife, Sauda, from the Quraysh. Third wife, Aisha, from the Quraysh. Fourth wife, Hafsa, from the Quraysh. Fifth wife, Salama, from the Quraysh. Sixth wife, the other Zainab, who died, from the Quraysh. Seventh wife, who do we do? Juwariya, from the Quraysh. Next wife, Sophia, Hebrew. The next wife, Maymuna, from the Quraysh. He didn't marry no slaves. That's why I said that's a lie. They always say that he married his slave Mariya. Mariya was his slave. He never married her. And she was not no black woman either. She was a Copt, a white colored Copt. Okay. And that's why I say I had to put all these myths out because that's not true. And all these hadiths, I'm gonna go into more detail with these hadiths next week. But these hadiths are all in Bukhari and Muslim. They tell you that she was not, he never married her. Never married her. The prophet didn't marry any of his slaves. All his wives were from the Quraysh. They were all from noble. And that's why I'm telling y'all, every wife the prophet had came from nobility. He didn't marry no slave. Why didn't he marry Mariya? It's not befitting for a slave who's a descendant of Pharaoh to be my wife.
Oh, subhanallah.
Y'all don't get it? That's why I was asking y'all, did y'all get it?
That's why he
y'all didn't get it.
I got it.
Now do y'all get it? Why would I marry her? I am a prophet of Allah. Why would I marry a descendant of Pharaoh? Just like what happened with Fatima, radiallahu anha. When Ali came home and told Fatima he was going to marry the daughter of Abu Jahl. What did the prophet say? It's not befitting for the daughter of the prophet to be married, to be a co-wife to the daughter of the enemy of Allah. Same thing. It's not befitting for the prophet of Allah to marry a slave who is from Pharaoh. The hikmah of Allah. Y'all see that?
Yes.
He never married her.
Thank you.
So, Layla, when are you going to do the daughters?
Let's get through this first.
Okay.
I'm going to try to cover most of the companions, but I want y'all to focus on these stories because y'all missed that point I thought y'all got as to why he didn't marry her. Pharaoh, the enemy of Allah, just like Abu Jahl was the enemy of Allah. Why would you put the daughter of the prophet as a co-wife to the daughter of the enemy? Why would you make the enemy of Allah? Pharaoh is the most cursed man in history. Why would you put his descendant as your wife? But I'll make her my slave and treat her well, and she can even bear my children. But she ain't on the same level as Aisha and them. Y'all see what I'm saying? She's not on the same level. Allah's got to show that. Remember, Allah tells us in the Quran that, you know, he favors some of us over others. Allah's got to be Allah. He's got to show that he's above arrogance. Arrogance is the cloak of Allah. Pride is his mantle. Our Lord is an arrogant Lord, prideful Lord. Yeah, descendants of Pharaoh. They still exist, these Copts. Why are you bragging about it? And that's why I go off on these Egyptian sisters. Why y'all bragging about being from, I got Coptic blood in me too. You see me bragging about that crap? Why y'all think I'm scared to go out the house? Hello? If anything, you Coptic Jewish, you Coptic Egyptians need to be like me. Why y'all think I stay in my house? I don't want the wrath that fell down on them people to come on me. Hello?
It makes it's common sense now that how you're explaining it now. I totally get it now. Alhamdulillah.
Yeah.
I got it. Alhamdulillah.
Yeah, but no, he didn't. All his wives were, in fact, every wife he married, he was related to. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, if you think about it, guys, he was related to even Sophia. Him and Sophia were related too, as distant cousins.
Yeah.
So every wife that the Prophet married, he was related to. They were all cousins.
Yeah, makes sense.
Mm-hmm. They were all of good stock. You know, you want to boast and brag about being a Pharaoh's blood. That ain't good stock. How can you, like the Prophet said in one hadith, never refer to a kafir as being with any titles of nobility? Because if they were worthy of those titles, they would have been Muslim. Why are you going to boast and brag about being from the ancient Egyptians? The ancient Egyptians were cursed. Allah left their tombs are being dug up today. Ain't nothing to boast and brag about. Those are reminders to us. Reminders, don't be like them. Don't be like your forefathers. Okay? But we got stupid Muslims that boast and brag about that. And don't boast and brag about being from the Prophet either. Because guess what? You know, you from him, why aren't you living up to it? You know, Allah wants us to stop all that lineage crap, boasting and bragging about your forefathers. It's about being a Muslim. It's about your taqwa Allah. All Allah cares about is our taqwa. Mariya the Copt, she was a woman of taqwa. She wasn't with the Prophet but a few years because he died not long after getting her, okay? But she serviced him. She made him happy. She made him happy, and she made the best and the most of their time together. She's respected. She'll be one of the mothers of the believers. She will be one of the mothers in paradise. Even though he didn't marry her, she's still one of the mothers of the believers. Okay? She was a good example of that. Even if you come from a lower status, you still have to honor your husband, honor the Prophet, honor Allah. A lot to learn from her, as we're going to talk about. When I go deeper into her story, you're going to see the different lessons to learn from her. Allah does everything for a reason. Yeah.
When's the next class? When's the second part?
Yeah, this class is held every Monday and Wednesday. So what's today? Wednesday. So next Monday, we'll be doing part 2 of this story next Monday. And by the way, guys, please share and like our videos. If you like our videos, please click that you like them. So that way it'll get us up in the subscribe list. And also subscribe to our channel. And also scan the QR code to support this website. Yeah. I put a lot of research in today's class. I had to go through a lot of talking about I had to do a lot of my, I have a degree in history, but I had to talk with some people I know in Egypt. I also had to get with Sheikh Morsi. I had to put a lot of stuff into this to get a lot of other stuff. And I put a lot into this class. Yeah. Yeah, subhanAllah. And my Egyptian sisters are thanking me too. Yeah, y'all got that. You're going to be bragging about that garbage. Yeah. The sister said, Layla, you definitely got the, she said, Layla, you definitely have the ancient Egyptian look. I know. It's my father's eyes and stuff. I know. But there ain't nothing to brag about. That's for darn sure. I got Viking in me too. Reganolf. I got Reganolf in me and King Charlemagne too. Is that to brag about? King Charlemagne? He was a dirty person. Reganolf? Barbarian. Guiton? Jean Guiton? A rapist. What's there to brag about? All right, guys, I'm going to close out here for tonight. Tomorrow is Thursday. Make sure you guys are here for the 6 o'clock class and continue reading chapter, what is this, chapter 16 or 15? Chapter 16. Continue with chapter 16 of the book, Diluting El Wala Will Better. Okay? And by the way, we are streaming on Mixcloud. Oh, here's somebody on there. Yeah. So that's it. That Mixcloud is working. All right, I'm going to close out for tonight. I'll try to put the videos up tonight. Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdika ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka